Hey guys, thanks for watching my channel. My name's Don, and if you like talking about fishing, and especially if you're over the age of 70, this is the channel for you. Today's topic is, I'm 80 years old. Fishing's getting to be harder and harder. What do I do now? And I guess the thing that bothers me about that question is I'm not going to encourage anybody to quit fishing. I think you should fish it till you can drop dead. Um, you don't have to fish as hard. You don't have to fish as often, and you can still make shorter trips and fewer trips. But I think fishing is once it gets in your blood, you know, you you can't get rid of it. And I think most of you would agree with me. But what I want to talk about today is what do you do when you kind of slow down a little bit? I mentioned 80. I just picked that number out of the blue. I'm 77. I'm going to be 78 this year. And I guarantee you I've slowed down. I'm not the same guy I was, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's harder to do things. And in some cases, I just don't feel like doing them. And, when you look at what a fishing trip involves, I mean, at least for me, I need to go out there. I need to hook up my boat, which is no small task. I've got a 20-foot Ranger, and, I drive an F-150 Ford truck. So it takes me a few minutes to back it up, get it lined up correctly, get it on there, wind it down, wind the winch down, get all the chains hooked up and the lights. And then once I get it hooked up, I've got to be careful when I take it out of my garage. I've got to actually lower the power poles, or they're going to hit the top of my garage coming out. So once I get through all that, and of course I always forget something. Um, Usually I forget to unplug the charger, end up pulling it out of the wall. But once I get it out of the garage, then I figure out what I want to take. So I pick out whatever rods I want. Typically, I'll pre-rig them because I don't want to get out on the water and have to struggle around to find my glasses and, try to tie them on. If I do it ahead of time, it just makes it a lot easier. And I'll stack them up, maybe 4 or 5 rods on each side of the boat, a few of them in the boat locker. And then you take off, you go. Yep, you forgot something. Well, I forgot my phone. Got to have my phone because if I have a problem, I need to have a phone to be able to call somebody. Didn't used to have to worry about that, but you have to worry about that now. And you drive to the lake, you get there, and of course, you got to unload. You got to drop the boat in the water. And by yourself, that can be a challenge. Normally, I'll back it down as far as I can, and then I'll go get out of the truck, walk down to the boat, get in the boat, back it off, pull it up on shore, come back, get in the truck, take the truck up, park it, come back. I don't want this to sound like I'm complaining, but there's a lot involved when you make a fishing trip. And the point I want to make is the older you get, the older we get, the harder that becomes. And if you're not feeling real good, if you didn't sleep well, or arthritis is acting up, or God knows what may be the problem, going fishing can be hard to do. And as much as we would like to believe when we're 50 or 60 that when we retire we're going to go fishing every day, that's really not what happens. But I'd like to propose to you, or suggest at least, a little different hobby. I'm not saying you should give up fishing, not at all. I'm just saying here's a hobby that anyone can enjoy. You can be a 12-year-old kid and enjoy it, and you can be an 80-year-old man and enjoy it, or a woman. And that hobby is lure collecting. Now, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, I probably mentioned to you that I'm an avid lure collector. I've got a pretty extensive collection of lures. From time to time, I'll bring a few out and talk about them. But it's really kind of a private thing with me. I like to look at my lures you know, it might sound silly, but there's times I'll go in and I'll sit in I have all my lures in a second bedroom. But a lot of times I'll go in and just sit down and look at some of the lures because it isn't the lure itself that's so critical or so important to me. It's the memory it brings back. It's the time that I, was fishing Mogador Reservoir with my dad, or maybe it was another trip that I made with my brother Bob, or maybe it was another trip that I made with my brother Bill. Could have been trips I made on my own, trips with other friends, maybe a trip with my wife, with my sister. I've been out, I've done a lot of fishing in my lifetime, but these lures, they hold those memories. And so they're very important to me. But for someone that might just be starting out, and particularly for those of you that, aren't able to go fishing as often as you'd like to, lure collecting is a great hobby, and it's an easy one to get into. For starters, you've probably already got a bunch of old lures just from fishing all your life. Again, if you're anything like me, I mean, I was fortunate enough to get my dad's tackle box when he passed, and even my grandfather's. And my grandfather didn't have much, but I did get their old lures, and I've kept them through all these years. Someday they'll go to my son, to my grandson. What they choose to do with them is entirely up to them. But they won't have quite the same meaning that they have to me. And so, the idea of collecting lures is all about you and what you're comfortable doing. But an easy way to start, just go to garage sales, go to estate sales. You'd be surprised how many old tackle boxes are just sitting in somebody's garage and have been sitting there for years. I've gone to a couple of estate sales, and the husband's deceased. The wife just wants to get rid of what she considers to be junk. Half the time they don't have any idea of the value. Not that I'm suggesting you would take advantage of anybody, but there's some great buys out there. I mean, I've picked up some lures that were impossible to find anywhere else, but there they were in some guy's old tackle box. Some aren't in the best of shape, but you can clean them up a little bit. You don't have to restore them completely, but you can clean them up. Again, it's in some ways a little bit like coin collecting. You don't want to try to make them new again. That's not the point. The point is they're old lures. And, there's a certain appeal that goes with that. But I can tell you, garage sales, flea markets, estate sales, just neighbors that want to clean out the garage. So many times, there's a fisherman that passes away. And the next thing you know, the wife has a garage sale, and there's golf clubs and fishing rods, tackle boxes. And again, if you just happen to be there at the right time and place, you can probably find some real good deals. What do you do when you get them? Well, it depends. I mean, some people like to collect crankbaits. Some people are more into topwater baits. Some people want to collect lures based on the manufacturer. For example, Heddon. I mean, Heddon is the oldest lure company in the United States. They've been around since the 1800s. They've got so many lures it would make your head spin just to try to catch them all, try to see them all. But there's other big companies as well, and then there's small companies. A lot of the companies that were making lures have been, bought out by larger companies, as so often happens. And they may not even be making that lure anymore, which makes it all the more valuable, all the more scarce. But it's still fun to collect, regardless of how you decide to, break your collection down. There's books out there. There's different organizations. Here in Florida, we have the Florida Lure Collectors. I think it's the FATC. They just recently had a meeting up in St. Augustine, and it's a great organization. They put out a publication. You become a member. I think it's $35 to become an annual member. And there's a lot of, you can learn a lot of stuff just going to these conferences they have a couple of times a year. There's also a national organization. Same thing. You can go to the national meetings. They're a little more frequent, but they're all over the country. They're not just in Florida. But however you decide to move forward with your collection, it's a lot easier, and it's done on your time. Unlike, taking a trip out to the lake, there's no boat to hook up. There's no long drive. There's no taking the time to put the boat in the water. Now, granted, they're not catching any fish either, but it's a nice hobby to kind of complement, the love and the passion you might have for fishing. So anyway, I would encourage you to give it a try. Start with the lures that you already have, and then just keep your eyes open and pick up one here and there. You can pick up some really nice showcases up at Michael's. I've bought quite a few from them, different sizes and shapes. I've been fortunate the few times that I've been there. They had a deal where you buy one, you get one free, even though I felt like one of them was pretty pricey. When you get another one free, kind of balances out that price. But a showcase like that, it's just a great way to really display them. And part of the problem I had for years was I used to keep them in plastic boxes. And I'm going back maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I'd keep them in the garage because I had nowhere else to keep them. And every once in a great while, I'd dig them out and I would look at them. And, my wife calls it playing with them. Well, I don't really play with them, but, I would get them out, look at them, kind of think back to the times I used them. And I noticed that they were, some of the boxes got cracked, heat from the heat, moisture down here. Some of the lures were starting to rust. And again, this was maybe 15, 20 years ago, but I ended up getting rid of a lot of them. Sold them on eBay, gave some away, sold them, at a garage sale, flea market. I was just tired of it. I was tired of it because I didn't have anywhere to display them. And so it just didn't make any sense anymore. If you can't put them out where you can see them from time to time, it's more like hoarding because you're finding a great find, a great lure. You're tucking it away in a plastic box, and then it's like you never see it again. So to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, after I'd sold a lot of this stuff and given a lot of it away, I didn't have that much left, but I took what I had left and I started being a little more methodical about it. Certain lures that I wanted, certain lures I didn't care. And, started getting a few showcases and really started setting it up the way I wanted to. And that's where I'm at today. So again, this is certainly not a hobby that'll replace fishing. But as you get older, and again, I picked an age of 80, but it could be 70, it could be 60, it could be 90. Everybody's different. But if you reach a point where fishing is becoming harder, more like work than fun, and you're looking for something that's related to fishing, you might want to look into lure collecting. So just my thoughts. Appreciate you taking the time to watch my video today. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, and by all means, leave a comment if you have anything you want to say, and by all means, subscribe to my channel. Trying to grow this channel. I think it's noteworthy to have an opportunity to talk with people. And, because I'm an old guy, I kind of like to talk about subjects that old guys would be interested in. So again, if you're an old guy, this is a channel for you. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great day.